So we're discussing surface area of a rectangular prism. Again, that is surface area of a rectangular prism. Let's start with the idea of a rectangular prism is essentially just a three-dimensional item, it's three-dimensional object rather, that has no rounded edges. So we're not talking about something that looks like a glass of water. We're looking at something that is shaped more like a present, which is a very common thing that's talked about in the problems that you'll do for surface area. Surface area is a measurement of the outside. So whereas volume would measure the inside, what you could fit inside of this box, surface area is a measurement of the outside. So for instance, how much wrapping paper would you need to cover this? How much paint would you need to paint this object, all six sides? To help you visualize this, we have a three-dimensional object here. This is a rectangular prism. As you can see three sides at a time. And if we were to cut this open and open it up, we would get this. And this has six sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you notice, you have the front and the back are identical. The left and the right are identical, and the top and the bottom are identical. And that figures into how we come up with the formula. The formula, which should be memorized, is here, which is surface area, SA, equals 2 times length times width plus length times height times width times height. That should be memorized. So parents, that should go in on a flashcard or in the memorization book for the student to commit to memory. So what we're looking at here, and if you understand the formula, it's easier to memorize it. Length times width would be your top and your bottom. So the top and the bottom. And length times height would be your front and your back. Width times height would be your right side and your left side. And of course, you could see three of them, and then we multiply times 2 to account for the other ones that we can't see that are identical to those. So here is a very common situation where they've told us what they are, 4, 2, and 3 for length, width, and height. Now I've used easy numbers so that our example is easy, but keep in mind that this should be a problem that is calculator is allowed. So if you have more complicated numbers like with decimals and so forth, or large numbers, a calculator will be there to help your child. So now what we do is we substitute. So everywhere we have a L, a W, or an H, we plug in our numbers like so. So we took where it says L, we have 4. Where it has W, we have 2. Where we have height, we have 3. We plug them all in. Now it's very important here to follow the order of operations. You can't add this 2 and 4. You have to do what's inside the parentheses first. So we're going to multiply all 3 of those first, which gives us this. And then, of course, you have to add before you can multiply here. So we add, and we get 2 times 26. So 26 would be the surface area of 3 of the sides. Then we multiply times 2 to account for the other 3, and we get 52 units squared. So whatever the units are, if you were going to say 4, 2, and 3 inches, then you would say 52 inches squared. Here we don't know what the units are, so we just say units squared. But surface area is a units squared type of item. Now, all of the problems are like this. All of the surface area problems. They might not tell you it's surface area. They might say how much wrapping paper, how much paint, blah, 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 but it's always the same. You memorize the formula, which is this top line. They tell you, or you have to figure out by looking at it, what the length, width, and height are, and you plug in the values, and then, which is called substitution, and then you solve like so, and you get your answer. To show you some examples, here is the test that they give you. Number 1 is which is the formula. So obviously the one that's the formula is C. They just put the multiplication sign in there instead of having it right up against the parenthesis. Either way is fine. Number 2, they tell you what the length, width, and height are. It doesn't even matter if you get them in the wrong order. If you want to call this the length and that the width and that the height, it doesn't matter as long as you don't use one of them twice. So you plug those 3 numbers in, you get your answer. Again, It's about a dresser. What's the surface area? They tell you the 3 measurements. You plug them in. You solve. Again, this one's a cube, so that means they're all the same. So all 3 numbers are 11. So it's an 11, 11, and 11, right? So length, width, and height are all 11 in a cube. Same thing here. They tell you 3. Same thing here. They tell you 3. You figure them out. Lastly, we have a BCR here. And on the BCR, again, right away, you can see here it says, it does not say surface area in the problem itself, but it's talking about wrapping paper. What's the smallest amount of wrapping paper that's needed? Again, you're wrapping something that is a rectangular prism. You could just figure it out by the 16, 14, 9. You use the formula and you solve. And that's exactly what you would write here on the bottom part. So it says surface area of a rectangular prism. So you would write the formula, which I'm not going to write again right here because I've shown it to you a couple times. You'd write the formula, and then you'd say what you did. You substituted, and then you evaluated. You could say solved using the order of operations or anything like that. And again, so the most important piece of information for your child or for you is the formula. Surface area equals 2 times the quantity of the length times the width plus the length times the height plus the width times the height.